This year, in the regular season, the Las Vegas Aces had their worst record since Becky Hammon became coach. They went 27 wins, 13 losses. Now, you all may say, what's the big deal? That's not that bad. Well, we're going to get into it. The reason for the 13 losses was partially because of injuries, right? But also because the Las Vegas Aces has not really evolved since 2020.
Can you believe what's happening to the Las Vegas Aces right now? They were the queens of the WNBA, but now they are falling apart faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion, and you can't look away. You might be thinking, how did it all go so wrong so fast? Well, buckle up, because we're about to take you on a wild ride through the Aces' implosion, from their shocking playoff exit to the drama tearing apart their locker room. It's a story that's going to leave you shaking your head in disbelief. Remember when the Aces were the team to beat the unstoppable force of the WNBA? Well, that feels like ancient history now.
Vegas Aces, the team that revitalized the modern day super team in the WNBA. They went from dominating the league, winning back-to-back championships, literally having teams craft their roster in order to beat the Aces. That same team that was at the top of the mountain when it came to the WNBA is now the team that did not live up to expectations this year, and is a team that's one by one falling apart in front of our own very eyes.
Let's rewind to that playoff series against the Liberty. The Aces strutted onto the court like they already had the trophy in their hands, but then something went terribly wrong. You know how the Aces' offense used to be a well-oiled machine. Well, in this series, it looked more like a rusty old jalopy. Kelsey Plum, the sharpshooter we all know and love, so suddenly couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and Chelsea Gray, the point guard wizard we've seen pull rabbits out of hats all season long, her magic touch vanished when it mattered most. Her shooting percentages took a nosedive, leaving fans scratching their heads in disbelief.
Yes, this is a very talented team. However, they lost games they shouldn't have lost. They had some of the star players on the team did not show up when they needed to show up. And ultimately, they lose.
But here's where it gets really interesting. It wasn't just one or two players having an off night. The entire team looked like they'd forgotten how to play basketball. Overnight passes were sloppy, shots were rushed, and the chemistry that made them so deadly during the regular season nowhere to be found.
So even with the MVP on their roster, even with $1 million NBA coach, even with 6 Olympians on your team, the Aces lose in the semifinals, and their quest for a rare three-peat is now over.
You might be thinking, come on, everyone has a bad game now and then, but this wasn't just a bad game. This was a complete meltdown on the biggest stage. The Aces' offense, which had been their bread and butter all season, crumbled like a house of cards.
Sure, the Aces still won games, but the Aces that we see now is a star personality heavy team that lacked the hunger that drives teams to actually be exceptional and win championships.
Now you might be wondering, how bad could it really have been? Well, let me paint you a picture. Imagine a team that dominated all season suddenly looking like they'd never played together before. Players were out of position, shots were clanking off the rim, and the Liberty were having a field day with all the turnovers. You think that on-court meltdown was a disaster? Well, get ready, because what's happening behind closed doors is even more explosive. Remember how the Aces used to be this unstoppable force. Now their locker room is like a powder keg ready to blow, and at the center of it all, the golden girl herself, A.A. Wilson.
Us as black women, Paige reminds me a lot of you. Like, it's not really about me. And she knows how her privilege got her to that point. And also, like, she's good at basketball, obviously. But, like, she understands her privilege. It's like what pushes her over the top, in a sense. It reminds me a lot of you. And I mean, that's a compliment.
Let's break it down. The Aces locker room has gone from popping champagne to a full-on war zone. Players are at each other's throats, and that championship chemistry, it's gone up in smoke. But here's where it gets really interesting. A.A. Wilson, the one-time face of the franchise, is now the one everyone's pointing fingers at. You might be thinking, come on, how bad could it really be? Well, picture this. An anonymous player actually said it's like walking on eggshells sometimes. You never know what's going to set her off. Can you believe that the same A.A. Wilson who used to rally the troops is now the one making everyone nervous? And it's not just her teammates feeling the heat. Coach Becky Hammon, usually the picture of calm, is starting to crack.
And this is why three-peating is hard. Let's be real. Like, the whole league has been pissed off for the last 8 months, and my players are in commercials and this and that and being freaking celebrities, and you get distracted. That's why it's hard.
She's been weirdly quiet about Wilson's behavior, but even she couldn't help throwing some shade. Hammond said, "We're all working on being better versions of ourselves. Talk about a polite way of saying get it together, people. But wait, there's more. Wilson's not just causing drama in person. She's taking it to social media too. We're talking emotional outbursts, passive-aggressive posts, the whole 9 yards. Fans and analysts are starting to wonder if she's really cut out to lead the team through this mess." And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse for the Aces, Becky Hammond dropped that bombshell.
I personally haven't loved the way that Becky has conducted herself this season. There has been multiple things that have made me think about her maybe a little bit differently than I did in the past. And maybe it was because I hadn't seen as much from her as I did this season. But this interview to me was very telling.
She publicly called out her players for caring more about their Instagram likes than their jump shots. Ouch, that's not just a coach being tough, that's a coach who's lost control of her team. You thought the player drama was bad? Well, get ready, because the Aces front office just turned into a ghost town. Remember when this team was the envy of the league? Now they are scrambling just to keep the lights on. Let's break it down. General manager Natalie Williams, she's out. Her top assistants, they've all jumped ship too.
On Saturday, October the 26th, the Las Vegas Aces announced that general manager Natalie Williams will not be returning to the team as part of a restructuring of the front office.
It's like watching rap flee a sinking ship, and the Aces are taking on water fast. Can you believe how quickly things are falling apart now? You might be wondering who's left to make the big decisions. Free agency is right around the corner, and the Aces front office is emptier than a Vegas casino at sunrise. There's no one left to call the shots, and that's a huge problem.
It's a lot of question marks, and I really do think that there's a whole sea change for the Las Vegas Aces that has started already, is going to continue to come. We're going to see players leaving this team. We're going to see more, at least probably one more coach leave the team. And so, hey, they had their heyday already, and now their heyday is up.
Gets really interesting. Coach Becky Hammond is eyeing a Cheryl Reeve-style takeover. She's thinking about combining coaching and GM duties. Sounds great in theory, right? But let's be real. Can one person really save the sinking ship, especially when there's so chaos going on?
They also will potentially be losing another assistant coach, Tyler Marsh, as well. Tyler Marsh has been speaking with the Atlanta Dream and the LA Sparks about their head coaching roles. And so it's possible that Tyler may be headed to one of those cities to become a head coach.
Think about it. The Aces are like a ship with only the captain left. No first mate, no navigator, no crew. How's Hammond supposed to steer this thing back on course all by herself? It's a tall order even for someone as talented as her. And let's not forget, this is happening at the worst possible time. The team's falling apart on the court. Players are looking to bail, and now there's no one upstairs to keep things together. It's a perfect storm of disaster for the Aces.
First domino that fell was on October the 10th when Natalie Nakase, who has been with the team during their championship runs, she decided to leave her assistant coach role with the Aces and become the new Golden State Valkyries head coach.
You might be thinking, surely they can just hire new people, right? But it's not that simple. Who wants to jump on board a sinking ship? The Aces' reputation is taking a beating, and finding top-tier talent to fill these roles is going to be a major challenge. Just when you thought the Aces couldn't sink any lower, they've managed to dig themselves an even deeper hole. Can you believe what's happening now? We're talking serious allegations here, and it's not just about losing games anymore. The Aces are facing a pregnancy discrimination lawsuit from player Dahami. She's saying she was bullied and harassed for being pregnant.
Team, endured some scandal a bit, right? And they had a lawsuit from a former player, De'Erica Hamby, when she filed a lawsuit alleging discrimination and retaliation. And in the lawsuit itself, she named GM Natalie Williams by name.
That's not just bad, that's downright shocking. The WNBA isn't sitting back and watching this unfold. They said it was a violation of workplace respect, and as if that wasn't enough, the Aces have lost a first-round pick in the 2025 draft. Now you might be thinking, surely that's the worst of it. Right? Wrong. The WNBA is now investigating the Aces for potential salary cap violation.
Way more changes ahead, guys. Way more changes ahead. Because when we talk about the Aces, they have been the standard for the last several years, and they are no longer the standard.
Remember when the Las Vegas Convention Authority gave each player an extra $100,000 in May? Yeah, that's raising some serious eyebrows. The league is looking into allegations of under-the-table benefits provided to players. If this turns out to be true, we're talking about massive fines and even more draft penalties. Let's break it down. If the Aces are found guilty of these salary cap violations, it could be a disaster. We've seen this before in other sports leagues, and it never ends well.
I think that, you know, we've seen that such a huge inflection of attention, and you know, her play, just the way she plays the game, I think that's going to be sustainable. There's clearly there's something about the way she plays the game, her passing, her shooting, that people really identify with. And our backcourt, I think, is probably going to be one of the best in the league between her and Kelsey. It's a dynamic duo right there.
Teams that break these rules often face long-term consequences that can their franchises for years. With all this going on, is it any wonder their star players are looking for the exit? The Aces' reputation is in tatters, and it's hard to see how they'll attract top talent now. They are not just losing games, they are losing credibility, draft picks, and potentially a whole lot of money. Remember the Indiana Fever, the team everyone used to laugh at? Well, they are not the punchline anymore. In fact, they are about to turn the WNBA upside down, and it all starts with one name, Caitlin Clark. Think pounding Clark, step back, three it down. Can you believe what Clark's done in her debut season? She's not just good, she's rewriting the record books. We're talking 62 record shattered. That's not a typo, 62, but here's where it gets really interesting. Clark isn't just putting up crazy numbers, she's breathing new life into this team. You might be thinking, okay, but one player can't change everything, right? Wrong. Clark's leadership is contagious, has got the whole team fired up. Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, Kelsey Mitchell, they are all stepping up their game. It's like Clark's energy is spreading through the whole roster.
You know, you've got incredibly talented players right here in Caitlin and Aaliyah and Lexi, a team that was incredibly fun to watch, very tough to game plan against. So I'm glad I'm going to get to work with you guys, work with you ladies, instead of having to think about how to stop you. The future is so bright, and our ultimate goal is to hang another banner in the field house. And our ultimate goal is to come back in here after we win that championship and celebrate again like we did in 2012. So I just want to thank everybody for coming. Really excited, really looking forward to this, and can't wait to get started.
But wait, there's more. The Fever aren't just relying on Clark's star power. They are rebuilding from the ground up. Remember Kelly Krakoff, the mastermind behind their 2012 championship. She's back as team president. And get this, under her leadership, the Fever made the playoffs 13 times in 17 seasons. That's the kind of experience you can't buy. Now let's talk about their new GM, Amber Cox. She's not just any executive, she's got connections. And in the WNBA, connections mean everything. You can bet she's going to use those connections to bring in even more talent. And who's leading this team on the court? None other than Stephanie White. She's not just any coach, she's Indiana basketball royalty.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that we have two foundational players, probably three. You know, you get two rookies of the year in a row with a front court player in Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, and then Kelsey Mitchell. I mean, I think that the veteran leadership that Kelsey was able to provide, we need to help her.
As a player and now as a coach, she knows what it takes to win, and she's hungry to bring another championship to Indiana. But here's what's really setting the Fever apart. They are not just collecting talent, they are building a culture. It's all about teamwork, player development, and a winning mindset. And you know what? It's working. A league insider spilled the tea, saying we are at a point where we have an attractive group. We can attract a few free agents to come here and bolster us on the path that we're on.
Would think that if you are a smart basketball player and you watch the way she plays, you would want to play with her. You know, she, much like Tyrese Halliburton, she gets you the ball in places that you didn't even know you were open.
Let's rewind to that playoff series against the Liberty. The Aces strutted onto the court like they already had the trophy in their hands, but then something went terribly wrong. You know how the Aces' offense used to be a well-oiled machine. Well, in this series, it looked more like a rusty old jalopy. Kelsey Plum, the sharpshooter we all know and love, so suddenly couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And Chelsea Gray, the point guard wizard we've seen pull rabbits out of hats all season long, her magic touch vanished when it mattered most. Her shooting percentages took a nosedive, leaving fans scratching their heads in disbelief.